Rabbi Leibel Shapiro soll sein gesund, is mezaka all of anash with his daily zichrenes, recollections of 770, of the Rebbe and so on. And of course they're delightful. But he did a number on his grandfather. His grandfather's name was Reb Zalman Valenkin, his mother's father. And Reb Zalman Valenkin was the Rebbe's Malamed. He was the Rebbe's tutor, Rebbe's private teacher. If he taught the Rebbe Gemara, Reb Zalman Valenkin was clearly a Yid that you can't find Lenin. He was a big Talmud Chacham, and he was a very Chassidish Yid. He always talks about his ability to chazer Chassidus. He would say a Maamar, and everybody would understand, and they would enjoy it, and so forth. And Rabbi Shapiro spent a handful of his little posts telling stories that he heard from his grandfather about Reb Leivik, about the Rebbe's father. One of the posts that he has is as follows, that Reb Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the Rebbe's father, was the Yekatinus Lavarov, the Rav of Dnepr Petrovsk, which was a big city with a lot of Jews and a very complicated community. It was a difficult Rabbanus. And Reb Leivik was a Godel. He was able to manage one of the most difficult communities of Jewish people any place in the world. And he was the successor of Rebbe Wolf Kozevnikov, as they called him. Rebbe Wolf Katrinuslav, they called him. His family name was Kozevnikov. Rebbe Wolf. I've mentioned his name before. I've even told a story I'm about to tell you before. But this was new. This I didn't know. Rebbe Wolf, Rebbe Ber Wolf, Zev Wolf, I don't know exactly what his name was. His family name was Kozevnikov. And he was called Yekatinus Rebbe Wolf Katrinuslav. He was the Katrinuslav Rov. Passed away in 1908, I think, Tafresh Samaches or Samachtes, something like that. And Rebbe Leivik succeeded him. The Rebbe Rashab had to work very hard to guarantee that a Lubavitcher Rov should get that position that it was held prior by another Lubavitcher Rov. Bechlal, in that city, Yekatinus, there was an influence of Chassidus going back to when the time the city was founded, V'chulu, and so on. But the Rebbe Wolf was a Chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Rebbe Marash, and the Rebbe Rashab. And he was the Rav in Yekatinus. Rebbe Wolf himself was a Gon, a big Talmud Chacham, and a Chassid, and a Ovid, Yidu Davent, Bariches. And he also was the Menal of the Kehillah. He was the Rav of the Kehillah. He was the Mor of the Asra Beroma. I believe that Reb Leivik had a much more difficult job than he had because the world had changed. It had become very, very difficult to hold that kind of a position in a very, very changing world. So first I'm going to tell you the story that Rabbi Shapiro told, and then I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about this Rebbe Wolf. The story that Rabbi Shapiro told was that they were overrunning a cemetery in Yekatinus. I don't know the reasons and the particulars, but the government was doing something to a cemetery which required to have the bodies exhumed and moved, or at least some of the bodies exhumed and moved. And Reb Leivik, he was the Rav, Pini Atzomes is very complicated, oversaw this effort. And Reb Leivik was present, and Reb Zalman Valenkin was close to Reb Leivik. Yeah, I can't imagine. I guess he was the same age as Reb Leivik. Reb Leivik passed away very young. Maybe Reb Zalman Valenkin lived much younger. But the way Rabbi Shapiro tells the story, they were Pashat friends. And Reb Zalman Valenkin was a witness to the event of the exhuming the nefesh, the kever of Rebbe Wolf. That they dug him up and they pulled him out of the ground. They had to move him. And his body was whole. His body was whole, and he had been buried for a long time. So Reb Zalman, the Zayde, described to Rabbi Shapiro, the Einikel, that when Reb Leivik saw that the goof of Rebbe Wolf was whole, that's how he described it. Jets of tears shot out of his eyes. He was just so taken, so emotional by witnessing Davar al Tivi, it's a supernatural thing. You see a goof of a human being lays in the ground. It takes days, not weeks, not months, days for it to become an imavetele, to become nothing. And here, a body was laid in the ground for years. It was perfectly intact because it was a reina and a helik. I mean, you don't say about chassidim helik, but that's what the fact is. You're talking about a level of purity and zichuch and birur, which affects that the guf has a permanence, which is extraordinary. So the Rebbe Wolf was no child. He was a very special, very serious chassid. And the Rebbe Leivik saw this, witnessed this. So I started the story with this because this is new. I hadn't known this story, so I'm cashing in on somebody else's wealth. The reason I'm bringing up Rebbe Wolf is because I want to share with you a conversation that the Rebbe Rashab had with Rebbe Wolf, the Friedrich Rebbe's father had with Rebbe Wolf, which he later repeated to the Friedrich Rebbe, to the previous Rebbe. And the previous Rebbe says the story, tells the Halarichas in a Siche in Tov Shin, in 1940. The Friedrich Rebbe came to America. In the very, very first Siches, maybe it was Pesach, which took place in Lakewood, the Friedrich Rebbe asks the basic questions. What is Chassidus and what is a Chassid? What is Chassidus and what is a Chassid? And each of these conversations is a discussion that goes on for pages, with many details and many stories and many opinions. On the question of what is a Chassid, he mentions a story that the Rebbe Wolf told the Rebbe Rashab, that the Rebbe Rashab asked the Rebbe Wolf. The Rebbe Rashab was a young man. The Rebbe Wolf was a Chassid from Tzemach Tzedek. He was older than the Rebbe Nishma by a lot. And the Rebbe Rashab asked the elder Chassid, the Rebbe Wolf, what is a Chassid? And the Rebbe Wolf explained to him what a Chassid was and gave him an illustration from himself. The story was that the Rebbe Wolf had gestammelt. He stuttered. He stuttered so terribly he could barely get words out. But he was a Eloi. He was a prodigy. He was very intelligent. He was very learned. And in the city where he lived, there were a group of young men, bachelors, single men, who were no longer in an environment of Teda and Aveda, who were working, whatever the case was. And the Rebbe Wolf took them under his wing. He would sit with them, he would learn with them, he would fabring with them, he would busy himself with them to keep them erlich, the way Yid is supposed to be. It was, of course, difficult for him because the words wouldn't come out of his mouth, but he did it. He didn't think anything of it, and he didn't make a grace of Vezin. Okay, he was just doing something good. And on one of his visits to Lubavitch at Yechidus by the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, and the Tzemach Tzedek started asking him questions about his life and what he's doing and so on. And the Rebbe Wolf answered, and the Tzemach Tzedek was pressing him, like as if the Tzemach Tzedek wanted something that he wasn't offering him. What are you doing? Anyway, he asked him, and he asked him until finally, in exasperation perhaps, he ran out of things to say. He told him this, that one of the things he does is that he's makarav these young these young boys, young men who are single and therefore not preoccupied and attached and busy, and they can get themselves into all kinds of trouble, and he spends time with them, he learns with them, he fabrengs with them, he davens with them, he's makarav them. And the Tzemach Tzedek was so happy, Tzemach Tzedek was so taken by this, he was so delighted. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, Psach picha v'ya'iru dvarecha. Open your mouth and your words will shine. And the Tzemach Tzedek gave him brachas. The end of the story was that Rebbe Wolf never stuttered again, never. And he became one of the most famous and sought-after orators in the rabbinate in all of Russia. He became a brilliant public speaker, and there are stories about him in Shmer al-Batuma Sefer in Zichrei Nesai. He tells a story about the Rebbe Wolf on a train and his creativity and his skill at communication. But he became a great public speaker. And he used to joke and say that the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek is greater than the Maharal, because the Maharal Miprag created a Goylem that could not speak, and the Rebbe Gerecht, a Goylem was Ken Yored, that's how he would refer to himself. The Goylem who could speak, the Rebbe Wolf. So when the Rebbe Rashab was, if you can use this word, researching the question, was is a Chassid, he asked the Rebbe Wolf, and the Rebbe Wolf told him, a Chassid is eine, was is deirish tevez vilas. A Chassid is somebody who seeks the benefit of another. And he told him the story that happened with him. And this was his definition of a chassid. Rabbi say, we're learning a Maamar, which is not an easy Maamar. It's not an easy Maamar. And we've covered a lot of ground, right? We learned the last Maamar. We had 5 classes in the previous class. And we talked about many, many different things. Kved Malchuscha, Yeducha Hashem, Yeducha Avaya Kol Masecha, V'Chasidecha Yevarchucha, from the highest level to the lowest level, Bracha, Tefillah, Oni, Oshir, higher than Oshir, all kinds of things. And one of the things which has played itself out in these classes is that this incredible idea that you could bring down godliness from such a high level, which is called Yeducha Havaya, which is called Ein Seif HaMelubash Berad Lo, or alternatively it's called Pnimius Atik, which the Rebbe explains basically means the Meibish Nalein, the truth of Elokus, requires a chassid. That's what the pasuk says, Yeducha Havaya Kol Masecha V'Chasidecha Yevarchuch. The one who brings down the level of Havaya, which is in a madrega of Heidah, is a chassid. In other words, you bring it from a very high place called Yeducha Havaya. You're bringing it to a very low place, which is called Yevarchucha, and it's achieved by a chassid. What's interesting about this Maamar, however, is that the Rebbe is really translating the word chassid. What is a chassid? What's a chassid? You're going to see in the subsequent classes, perhaps not tonight, but in the subsequent classes, that he's going to contrast and compare chassid to yashar and to tzaddik. That tzaddik is the lowest madrega, yashar is the middle madrega, and chassid is the highest madrega. And it's almost as though the Rebbe is giving us an idealized definition of chassid, a true definition of chassid. You know, when the Chassidic movement was created, so we became known as Chassidim. Why were we called Chassidim? Because Chassidim firen zech lefnim yishuras adin. During the Gemara about Chassid Seirfan, that Chassidim do things lefnim yishuras beyond the letter of the law, and Chassidim had a lot of yiras shamayim, and they did things taka beyond the letter of the law, so they were called Chassidim. And the Misnagdim were very upset. And when the Alter Rebbe was imprisoned, he was asked, where did he take the brazenness, where did he take the chutzpah, where did he take the gall to take for his movement the Teir Chassid? Because the word Chassid is a very high level. It's higher than tzaddik, it's higher than yashar. And any bar beirav dachad yema almost is a chassid. So they asked the Alter Rebbe, the Misnagdim through the government people, asked the Alter Rebbe, how did you take for yourself such a denotation, such a title, such an illusion? So the Alter Rebbe said 2 things. First of all, he would have preferred to name the Chassidic movement the Tshuva movement rather than the Chassidus movement. Because the whole idea of a chassid is there's no Mederach Mamela, it's always growing. But he didn't want to give that name because had he used the name Tshuva, it would have meant that people who are not Chassidim don't have a Shaykhis to Tshuva, and he didn't want to say that. Second of all, in the words of the Alter Rebbe, Chassidim believe in Hashgacha Pratis, in the Hashgacha Al Yena, and Chassidim nemen fazich kemol gornish. Chassidim don't take for themselves anything. And he argued that the name Chassid was given to us by the Eilam Misha, by Yidden who were not Chassidim, but who were also not Misnagdim, that they saw the Hanhaga, how Chassidim behaved, that Chassidim behaved lefnim yishuras adin, so they gave them the name Chassidim. Now, you're not going to say that every person who carries the title Chassid is a Chassid in a very idealized way. You know, the Rebbe told a Yid who came for dollars. A Yid came for dollars to the Rebbe. And he had written and published a sefer called Allah Tzaddik. It's a whole book explaining one sikh of the Rebbe, Allah Tzaddik. So when he handed the Rebbe the sefer, the Rebbe looked at the sefer. It says on the cover, Allah Tzaddikim. So the Rebbe said, no, right after Allah Tzaddikim, it says, Allah Chassidim. So he says, so you're going to finish with the Madrega of Tzaddikim, you should immediately go on to Madrega of Chassidim. And the Rebbe told him, Heinz Severna Chassid is very easy. Today to be a Chassid is very easy. Medaf Narvelm. You have to want. As soon as you want, you're a Chassid. So the way we use the word Chassid, the way the word Chassid is used, all kinds of people go under that banner. But the word Chassid has a precise definition. And in this Maamar of us, the one we have in front of us, the Rebbe is going to define Chassid as a category. He's going to define the Chassid comprehensively. He's going to explain the concept of a Chassid ideally, in truth. And by explaining the concept of a chassid in truth, he's going to give an absolute definition, if you will, but he's going to raise the madreg of chassid up very high. Now, how we, you and I, people at Kenu in our times have a shaykhis with this, I don't know. Or maybe I do know that we don't have a shaykhis to it. But it seems that one of the things you can take from this Maamar Chassidus is that the Rebbe is Pasha translating the word chassid in an ideal way, in an idealized level, in an absolute way. I have here the Hayem Yem from Chaf Aleph Adar Aleph. And I'm going to read it inside. It says, Shem Chassid, hu Shem Kadum ha-nimtza b'divrei Razal. The word Chassid is an allusion which is ancient. It's been around for a very long time. In other words, the term Chassid precedes the Chassidic movement by thousands of years. It's found in Torah. Gam al Adam Arishan. Adam Arishan himself is called a Chassid. Now the simple type of Chassid is a person who does kindness, right? Chesed. But the word Chassid is ancient and it's an idealized term. And the Rebbe says, V'huteyar hashleimus v'ha'aflaga. The word Chassid denotes two things: wholeness, perfection, completeness, and aflaga, which means being excessively gifted, very, very special. Either intellectually or emotionally or both. So Chassid is a level of excellence which is excessive, which is extreme. So the word Chassid, as we use it in the modern world, which is an allusion to a community of people who follow in the derech of the Heilige Baal Shem Tov, is a serious word, right? Whether we, there's no doubt that we use the word a little bit, more than a little bit, cavalierly, without preciseness. And the Rebbe said that it's legitimate. You want to be a chassid, you're a chassid. However you understand that Rebbe's comment. But the true definition of chassid is extraordinarily serious, extraordinarily different. And then the Rebbe goes on to say, in the same Hayem Yem, Omnam b'teres achsidis, Chabad teir chassid hu mishamakim husei ha'atzmi mamodi, b'yediyas ha'teira, yedeya ma'u chasalei, v'neisei le'vedeg l'malas as a chassid, u'marbe b'mashmas b'derach kabbalah seil. The previous Rebbe said the chassid in Chabad there's two things. Number one, he knows honestly where he's holding. Number two, he knows honestly what he's missing. Number three, he works tirelessly to complete it. And number four, he constantly seeks opportunity for the idea of mishmas and Kabbalah Seil, to do the will of Hashem without having to understand. So the previous Rebbe here categorizes a chassid in the context of Chassidus Chabad. Number one, he's not genart, doesn't fool himself about who he is. He doesn't make himself more than he is. He doesn't make himself less than he is. Both of those are illnesses. And he knows his chesreiness, and he works very hard to correct them. And he also works on mashmas and Kabbalah Seil. So the previous Rebbe gives a concrete definition to chassid. My point is, we use the word chassid however we use it. But the word chassid is a very serious word in Torah and in Chassidus. And in our Maamar, we're going to be giving what amounts to a categoric, an absolute, a true definition to the Torah Chassid, which is at a very high level. Very high level. Yet in certain aspects, we're going to be able to relate to the Torah Chassid. Okay? But in order for me to set up tonight's class, I want to compare and contrast what's written in this Hayem Yem from the story with Rebbe Wolf that I told you a few minutes before. Right? The Rebbe Rashab asks Rebbe Wolf as a young man, "Was is a chassid?" And Rebbe Wolf tells him, "A chassid is eine was is deidish teva zulase." He thinks the benefit of another. The previous Rebbe here in this Igeres HaKedesh, in this piece of a letter, says that a chassid in Chabad has four definitions. By the way, I want to just mention that it says Shem chassid hu Shem hakodam and nimtza b'dir Razal. In other words, the word chassid was used by people who were extraordinary, right? In the Middle Ages, they were the Chassidi Ashkenaz. These were Mekubalim who were mad bebesegufim. They were called Chassidim. It's interesting to note, and this is not widely known, the Alter Rebbe, every single time he mentions the Vilna Gaon, b'chayev u'b'maaseh, he calls him HaGaon HaChassid. When he was alive, he calls him HaGaon HaChassid. When he passes away, he calls him HaGaon HaChassid HaMoneach. But the Alter Rebbe refers to the Gra as a chassid. And you'll ask Misnagdim who know, Elam who know, and they'll tell you that in Vilna, the Gra wasn't called the Gaon. You know, they call today, the Misnagdim called the Vilna Gaon the Gaon. Stam. But in Vilna, B'chayev of the Gra, he wasn't called a God, he was called a Chassid. And the klois, the shtibel with the Gra, spent his days and nights learning Torah, was called the Chassid's klois. He was known as a Chassid. Because the word Chassid is a very powerful, very, what is the words of the Rebbe? Shleimus and Haflaga. It's extraordinary denotation. Anyway, that was a Maamar Amuzger. I wanted to share that, but it's a parenthesis. When the previous Rebbe uses the Torah Chassid here, he describes Avodah im atzmei, which means that the word Chassid reflects what you do vis-a-vis yourself. You know your milas, you know your chesrenis, you work on improving yourself, and you harness yourself with discipline and principle and acceptance of a responsibility and a yoke, which is awesome, right? All of these things are awesome. But the Rebbe Avov is saying something else. And in fact, the Rebbe Avov is saying something which is deeper. Now, to say chas v'sholom that the Rebbe Avov is saying something the Frierdiker doesn't say in a letter is silly, because this is a Maamar from the Rebbe Rashab, which the Rebbe was repeating, which also defines Chassid. It's veistach, yesh v'yesh. There's so many different aspects. So the Hayem Yem is speaking about one aspect, and the story of the Rebbe Avov is speaking about the other aspect. What's the pshat deidish teva zulase? What does it mean thinking about the benefit of another? In short and simple words, this means that you put another human being before yourself. Putting another human being before yourself is in a certain aspect much deeper than everything that's written here. Avodah im atzmei, working on yourself, even if you have the greatest measure of honesty, and you have an incredibly refined and precise measure of criticism, ahuv es habikedes, self-criticism, and of course appreciating critique and redirection and clarity from others, is an incredible life, especially if it's spiced with mashmas and kabbalah sel, with the idea of discipline and so on and so forth. But it's still avodah pratis, it's you. The idea of Deidish Tevez Elosai is unique and it's different because it involves putting somebody else ahead of yourself. It isn't only you think about somebody else also. But the Deidish Tevez Elosai is even at the expense of yourself. I'm just going to tell you a word, as a muzgir, a very short word. There was a Yid whose name was Rabbi Yossi Paltiel, Harav Yossi Paltiel, all of Shalom. He was a very good friend of Reb Zusha Vilimovsky. He was a Lubavitcher Bacher. He wasn't even married. He was a Bacher learning the Teres Emes. When the 1948 happened and Yisrael was announced as an independent body, and there became a huge circumstance of immigration, of Yidden coming from various different places to settle in Yisrael, what they call Aliyah. And one of the most serious issues was chinuch. People came from all kinds of places and they didn't understand. People came from Yemen. They had no concept of a Jew that's not religious. They simply didn't have such an idea at all. And it was a very dangerous time because the Shomer HaTzair, the secular left, was trying everything in their power to schlep these children away to secular education because they didn't want Charedim, they didn't want that Yidden, they wanted secular Jews. And this Yosef Yitzchak realized this, and he went into the Ma'abrot. He would go into the tent cities. There was not even yet sufficient housing for all of these olim, all of these newly arrived immigrants, and impressed upon them the seriousness of the question of where they registered the children to go to school. And it was a war. It was a war. There was a lot of emotion. There was even violence. And this young Bacher, he was 21, how old he was, he saw what was going on, and he undertook to do something about it. He got some of his friends, and they went into these places, and they saved thousands of Yiddish kinder from Shmad. It's very simple. Thousands of Jewish children who otherwise would have gone to learn who knows where ended up getting a Yiddish chinuch. And of course, the sister of this effort was Abzusha's founding, under the Rebbe's leadership, the Reshes Ola Yosef Yitzchak Lubavitch, which was a network of day schools, that was the place where these children were able to go to learn and so on. Anyway, this Rabbi Yitzchak Lifshitz wrote, his organization was called Yad La'achim. It still exists, but it's evolved, right? What it does today is different than what it did 65 years ago, but the organization is incredible. And he's a big askan. He's a chassid of the Rebbe's. And he wrote the Rebbe a letter. I have not seen a biography on him yet published. I would imagine it's either in print and I don't have it, or it's going to be in print. It must be published. But in Zusha's book, HaPartizan, there's a part where these two great Chassidim crossed paths, and there's a lot of discussion on him, on the base of Yitzchak Lifshitz. And in the book, there's a letter that he had written to the Rebbe, let's say in 52 or 53, where he basically writes to the Rebbe, Mosai e'ese gamaneichi lebeisi. I'm a yeshiva bacher, and I put aside my entire interest of Torah and Avodah for Atzolas Nefashos. That's exactly what it was. Spiritual rescue of life from certain spiritual death. But I want to go back to yeshiva, I want to learn Torah. And the Rebbe wrote him a letter, and the letter's published, it's probably in Igris also, where the Rebbe writes to him, how could you even think such a thought? You've had this chus to save so many Jews, how could you even think the thought of going back to yeshiva? How could you even think it? And of course he listened to the Rebbe. Now, this story is what Rebbe Wolf meant when he said to the Rebbe Rashab, Deidish Tevez Ulasei. Deidish Tevez Ulasei means you have your own life and you have your own avoid and your own interest. Chassid says, Deidish Tevez Ulasei. A Chassid is somebody who embraces the obligation to think about another Jew, even if at the cost of his own ruchnius. Alachas kama at the cost of his own gashmias. And this is where our Maamar begins. In other words, I'm contrasting it to the Hayom Yom. In the Hayom Yom, the Rebbe first of all brings the idea that Chassid is a Teir Kadmon in Chazal and so on. And he describes Chassid as an Aveda Pratis, so a Chassid is one who works on himself. In this Maamar, and again, I believe that this is the pshat of what the Rebbe Wolf told the Rebbe Rashab, the phenomena of Chassid is somebody who puts somebody else ahead of himself. What's the philosophy behind this? What's the mysticism? What's the oimek? What's the lomdis? What's the pilpul? And the answer is this, and we discussed this in a previous class, and I'm unabashedly repeating it. I'm repeating a conversation we had earlier in this very series. And that is that in Tanya Perek Mamav, Tanya chapter 41, the first half of the Perek talks about the lowest possible levels of Avodah, Reishis Avodah V'ikra V'sharsha, which is Yirat Atah and Avedas Ovid, which is even lower than Yirat Atah, Bittul, Kabbalah Seil, Shalei Yarenu Adam, Shehi Meir Shamayim Aleichem K'meir Basaf Adam, Shalei Yarenu Adam. And the second half of Perek Mamalef is the highest Madrega in Avedas Hashem. It's an interesting Perek, it's like a contrast. The first half is the lowest level, the second half is the highest level. And the second half of Perek Mamalef talks about Mesiras Nefesh, total self-sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But in discussing total self-sacrifice to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Alter Rebbe brings two levels, a lower level and a higher level. The lower level is that a Jew gives himself away to HaKadosh Baruch Hu completely with the understanding that the Eibishter is emes. He brings at the end of the Perek that a Yid says every morning, Alakai, Nishom, Asher Zata Bi Tehei Hiyata V'Rosat, Yitzarta, Telefachta Bi, V'Ata Meshamra B'Kirbi. V'Ata Osed Litla Mimeni, you will one day take it from me. And the Alter Rebbe says, the Lashon Hareini Meise L'Chamayat, I'm giving it to you right now. The Alter Rebbe says, when a Yid learns Torah and does mitzvahs, it's an act of sacrifice. You're giving yourself away to the Eibishter. Now, why are you giving yourself away to the Eibishter? Because the Eibishter is emes. So you're giving yourself away to the Eibishter because the Eibishter is emes and you are going to be included in that emes. This is the lower level of Mesiras Nefesh. This is the lower level of Mesiras Nefesh. And the Alter Rebbe says about this level of Mesiras Nefesh, alle Yidden halten by them. Every Jew is holding by this. But there's a higher level of Mesiras Nefesh. And the higher level of Mesiras Nefesh is the idea of Liyachte Kuchabrichu Shchinte B'Tachteinu, the Madrega of Bnei Aliyah. Liyachte Kuchabrichu Shchinte B'Tachteinu means that the nature of your Mesiras Nefesh is that you don't think about yourself. You don't even think about your relationship with the Eibishter. You think about what the Eibishter needs from you. And if the Eibishter needs from you to close the Gemara and go and save a life, that's your sacrifice. If the Eibishter needs from you to put aside your ruchnias for the benefit of Atzalas Nefashos and the saving the ruchnias of another Jew, that's your Mesiras Nefesh. And it's implicit in Zayar. when he speaks about the Bnei Aliyah, that their Einyan is, it's going to be in this Maamar, Zeu Chassid, Hamis Chassid im Kaina, you're doing a Chassid for the Eibishter. How are you doing a Chassid for the Eibishter? But because you're putting aside your interest, including your Ruchniyazdike interest, including your Karmi Shali, and doing what the Eibishter wants and what the Eibishter needs. And this, says the Alter Rebbe, not everybody is ready for. A Mesiras Nefesh, when you put somebody else before yourself, because that's what the Eibishter needs from you, this is a very high madrege, and that's why he says that the idea of l'shem yecha kodesh b'richu shchinte, which is this idea, l'shem yecha kodesh b'richu shchinte, means I don't think about me, I think about the Eibishter's need. To have a dira b'tachtenim, not everybody's holding by it, which is why that when we say l'shem yichud, we add b'shem kol Yisrael. Because b'shem kol Yisrael means, even if I as an individual, I'm not holding by this madrega, al yetzi adam atzmei min klal, you're a member of klal. And klal is perfect. Klal is always right. It's always the way it's supposed to be. And as a member of a klal, b'shem kol Yisrael, as a member of the community of Jewish people, you're prepared for this madrega of Mesiras Nefesh as well. So what's the difference between the first level and the second level? The first level, you're sacrificing yourself and becoming one with HaKadosh Baruch. The second level is maybe you're sacrificing yourself and remaining separate from HaKadosh Baruch, because this is what HaKadosh Baruch needs from you. And that's the Oymek, that's what the Rebbe Wolf told the Rebbe Rashab. A Chassid is Einev, says Deirish Teva Zulase. If this is what the Eibishter needs from you, this is what you do, even if it's not your perfect, personal Ruchniyazdike benefit. You know, when we were growing up, people had tainis to Lubavitch, that it says Ksheit Atzmecha V'achach Ksheit Acherim, all kinds of other expressions. And the Rebbe has many answers to these tainis. And the basic answer is there's a fire burning. When the fire burning, you don't make cheshbeinis. I met years ago Rabbi Nachman Bernard Alav Shalom, the Hawalichtkin Gan Eden. He was a Yid Mesiras Nefesh. That's what he was. His whole life was sacrificed, his Gashmizik life and his Ruchniyazdike life was sacrificed for Jews of Johannesburg. And his Hatzlacha and his influence is extraordinary. And his wife, so Zizan Gizun, told me that every Rov in Johannesburg today is a graduate of Oxford, which means that if not for him, not a single person who was holding a position of the rabbinate today in Johannesburg wouldn't be there. And he told me about his wife, that when they came to Johannesburg, there wasn't a single lady using the mikveh, kamat no one. And she did, with, b'chochmosa, b'binasa, and with her sensitivity, she was made the Taras HaMishpacha, and hundreds of mishpachas, hundreds of women are using the mikveh. So he told me, and it's a story which he's told publicly, that he came to see the Rebbe. He was a Rav in Wichita, Kansas. And his Rabbanas in Wichita, Kansas itself was the Chassidish Rabbanas. Because when he graduated from Yeshiva University with Musmach, with Tzmicha, so there was a placement counselor who was trying to find him a job. The first job they try to find you. And they offered him jobs in the tri-state area, and his comment was, who wants to be a Rav over Jews who are initiated, who think they're themselves the Rabbanim? I want to be a Rav in a place where I'm going to really make a difference. And the placement counselor says to him, this is probably 1957 or 58, you sound like a Lubavitcher. And at that point, he had no relationship with the Rebbe, and it was certainly very Lubavitch. He moved to Wichita, and he did Gedelis and Etzudas, and incredibly wonderful things. He moved back to New York because he wanted chinuch for his children, and he ended up in Johannesburg, you understand? And he had a yechidus with the Rebbe. And I'll tell you the story. He was convinced that the Rebbe has it in for him, that the Rebbe doesn't like him. Why? Because he often asked for an appointment with the Rebbe, and he was always refused. What he realized only later was that the reason he was always refused is because the times he asked for Yechidus was always during his vacation. His vacation was the end of August, the beginning of September, which is Elul. And Elul, the Rebbe didn't see people. There's no Yechidus in Elul. He didn't know this. So every year when he would make his trip with his young children and his wife to visit family and so on, he would ask to see the Rebbe, and they was always refused. So he was convinced that the Rebbe doesn't like him, and it was simply untrue. And by the way, he had a very special relationship with the Rav, with Rabbi Yossi also. Rabbi Yossi Paltiel was very close to him. He says he doesn't know why he had this chus, but Rabbi Yossi liked him and favored him and had a personal relationship with him, and the Rebbe had a very special relationship with him. Anyway, he moved And so while he was in Wichita, he met Lubavitch, he met Rabbi Weinberg, Rashag, they came to raise money. And Rabbi Weinberg used to travel to South Africa. The Rabbonis in the Oxford Synagogue in Johannesburg had been cleared. The prior Rav had retired or who had moved on, and they were looking for a Rav. And Rabbi Weinberg decided that he was the Rav. And he says to Weinberg, I moved from Wichita to New York to be closer to Yiddishkeit. For my children, I moved to Johannesburg, or I moved to Mars. And Rabbi Weinberg persisted. Eventually, Rabbi Weinberg says to him, what if I get you a Yechidus with the Rebbe? So he says to Rabbi Weinberg, the Rebbe doesn't like me. He says, why would you think that? Why would you think the Rebbe doesn't like you? So he tells him the story that frequently he asks for appointments and he's always refused. So Rabbi Weinberg tells him that not in it. The Rebbe doesn't see people in it. So he says, of course, I'll be happy to meet the Rebbe. So I heard from his son, Zolzan Gezun, that it was Chalamed Sukkos, that he had the Yechidus. And he described to me the preparation for the Yechidus. Here he came. He was wearing a jacket and a tie, a necktie, no beard, no hat. He was a modern Orthodox Rav. And he's going, and no gartel, obviously, he's going into the Rebbe. So he came to 770, and he's waiting his turn. Rabbi Weinberg is nervous like you never saw. He's running around like a caged animal. And he couldn't understand. He's going into the Rebbe, and Rabbi Weinberg is a bench, all of Hashem, Zechina Levrachim. So he says he paces and paces and paces. Rabbi Weinberg was beside himself. He's pacing and pacing and pacing and pacing. And finally, Rabbi Weinberg turned and stops right in front of him and says to him, Du verstehst, was das meint, dass du gehst da rein zum Rebbe? You understand what it means, you're going into the Rebbe? Now this is a Jew who knew Rabbi Soloveitchik well, yeah? He had met a Godel B'Yisrael, a Goan. But he understood that the Rebbe is something different. So he says to Rabbi Weinberg, no, I don't know what it means to go to the Rebbe. So Rabbi Weinberg says to him, Reingehen zum Rebbe auf Yechidus meint makabel sein the Teire for the Mebishn of Baruch Sinai. You're getting the Teire. You're getting your mandate, your mission. So he says, I said to Rabbi Weinberg, Hineni, Hineni. Now why would he say Hineni? Why? He's not the Lubavitcher, he has no relationship with the Rebbe. But he was Ish Emes, there's no question about it. He was Ish Mesiras Nefesh, no question about that. And this was his reaction. Rabbi Weinberg told him, listen, you're going into the Rebbe, you're going to hear the truth. And he said, I'm ready. So he went into the Rebbe. And the Rebbe spent a lot of time talking about Johannesburg, about Oxford. And he had no interest in it. He moved to New York to become a teacher, to become a Rav, to publish books, to go back into the teaching. To become a scholar and to publish. And he had it out with the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave him 101 reasons that he should take the job, and he gave the Rebbe 101 reasons why he shouldn't. And the way he told me the story, he said, I saved my ace for last. I saved my best argument for last. So after the Rebbe at Agishlag refuted all of his reasons not to take the job, he says to Rebbe, das nit karmi shali. This is the Shir HaKerem in Yeshaya, right? The Shir HaKerem is the song about a person who's tending a vineyard, looking after the grapes and the branches and the leaves and the whole thing, but it's not his, it's somebody else's. So you have the very passionate exclamation of the Novi, Karmi Shali Leina Tarti, I'm busy saving the whole world, and Karmi Shali, my own vine, I didn't save. So he says to the Rebbe, das nit Karmi Shali. And the Rebbe points at him with his finger, which is not something the Rebbe did often. And when the Rebbe pointed at you, it was a laser. Das is Karmi Shali. This is absolutely your business. Now, how was it his business? How was it his business? How was it going on in South Africa his business? And the truth is, the real truth of the matter is, that the Rebbe has redefined Chassidus, really. The Rebbe has redefined Chassidus. I don't mean Chas v'Shalom, he's saying something which the earlier Rabbeim didn't say. But he's taking something that the earlier Rabbeim saw as the ultimate level of Chassidus and made it into Aleph Beis. What is it that was considered the ultimate level of Chassidus? And the answer is Deiresh Teva Zulase. You put somebody else before yourself. It's the highest level of Chassidus. And by the Rebbe, this is Aleph Beis. You're not a Chassid until you put yourself aside for somebody else. And that's what the Rebbe says to him. This is your business exactly. So how do you want to fit this into the tradition of Torah and Chazal and Allah? I don't know. But this is a revolution. It's a new Torah. It's a new Torah. And the new Torah says at the beginning of Chassidus is when you makar another Jew at your own expense. The Rebbe says it in the first Maamar, the Al-Tikri. The Rebbe says the Basi Lagani, that it says Vayikra Sham B'Shem Avaya El Elam Al-Tikra Vayikra Ela Vayakri. And the Rebbe brought what says in Klali Shas, Chazal, that when you have an Al-Tikri, you have to read it both ways. So it says Vayikra Sham Avaya B'Shem Avaya Kelam. Avram Avinu called the name of the Eibishter. And you have to read, not Vayikra he called, Vayakri he got others to call. And the Rebbe said you have to read both together. Both together. And he touched. Oib du willst, as dir soll eingehen, de vayikra mu sein de vayakri. If you want to be a chassid, you want to be connected to the Eibishter, be makar of somebody else. This is one of the most important points in that first Maamar is this. Oib du willst, as dir soll eingehen, de vayikra Muzayin de Vayake. This is what he tells Rabbi Bernard. This is Karmi Shali. Karmi Shali is Deidish Tevez Alossi at your own expense. And even within the world of Chassidus, and even in the world of Chassidus Chabad, L'chaeda, it's a revolution. Varaya, here's a letter from the Friedrich Rebbe, where Chassidus is talking about Aveda Pratis, Aveda Matzmi. And the Alter Rebbe mentions it in Tanya, in Perek Mem Aleph. But the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, Perek Mem Aleph, it's not everybody's holding by it. The idea of Mesiras Nefesh, sacrificing yourself for Hashem. In other words, where in the sacrifice you become lost in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is for everybody. But the idea of sacrificing yourself for Hashem, where the nature of the sacrifice is what God needs from you, rather than what you need from God, this is a higher madreg. This is a higher madreg. In this Maamar, Lehavin Einyan is Chanukah, which is a hemshech to my pada b'shalom. This idea is very important. This idea that Chassidus is Deidish Tevez Alossi, and the whole concept of Chassidus is you put somebody else before yourself. In this Maamar, it's called bittul, or called bittul b'tachlis. Why should I give myself away for you? And if you is the Eibishter, you can understand why I should give myself over you. But if you is Shmerel or Berel or Moshe or Chaim or Bracha or Bela or Basha, why should I give myself away for you? And the answer is, this is a Chassid. A Chassid is mevatel himself to what the Eibishter wants. If the Eibishter wants from him something, which for him personally, begashmias even beruchnias, is adverse, is not advantageous, he puts aside his interest. Begashmi. So Baruch needs to help a fellow person. So this is the ingredient which is going to become central in this Maamar. Again, in the previous class on Chanukah, we talked about the Chashmonaim, who did exactly this. But this is the ingredient that is going to become basic to this class and the following class when we're going to be exploring this question, what is a Chassid? What's a Chassid? And basically the answer is a Chassid is higher than a Yashar, is higher than a Tzaddik. What makes a Chassid superior to those is that the whole taich of Chassid is that he's dedicated to the Kavanah, whatever the Eibishter wants. Not his Kavanah, not his Tachlis, not his Matara, not his Shleimus, whatever the Ratzonelli, whatever the Eibishter needs from him, this is what he's prepared to do. That's a Chassid. And the bittul quality of a Chassid, the bittul property of a Chassid, makes him a correct conduit, makes him a correct intermediate for bringing down the highest madregas of Gilui. Why is it that the Chasidecha Yevarchuch, the Chassid brings down the madrega of Yeducha Havaya until Yevarchu Koi? Because of his incredible bittul, because of his extraordinary bittul. And that's how this whole philosophy is important to this Maamar. The whole idea of Deidish Tevez Alossi, which is how I started the class. Putting somebody else before yourself, because this is what the Eibishter needs from you. What lies at the corner of at the cornerstone of that, at the essence of that, is bittul, hineni, and that bittul is the v'chasidecha that joins together Yeducha Havai, the level of Havaya which we don't understand at all. All you can have is Heidah and Yevarchu Kei to bring it down to Malchus, Sheba Malchus, the lowest madregas, as we discussed at length in the previous shiur on this Maamar. and the previous Maamar. But this is only my first introduction, and we're 45 minutes into the class. There's one more thing I want to say. And this I'm going to make b'kitzur, because we've talked about it also, Kama Pamim, in the last handful of classes that we've had. And that is, and again, I discussed this at length with you in the previous Maamar, that there's a lot of levels of serving Hashem. There's a lot of madregas of serving Hashem. And the higher one is in serving Hashem, the closer they are to the Eibishter. In other words, a big tzaddik has a much more revealed hashgacha than a simple person. And a bigger tzaddik has even a more revealed madrega of hashgacha. Until you reach the highest madrega of hashgacha, a highest madrega of tzaddik, where you can't, or in this language, the highest madrega of chassid, where you can't even call his hashgacha. It's just teva. He does what the Eibishter wants, and automatically the Eibishter does what he wants. It's not even cause and effect. It's completely b'derech l'meila, because there's that in tune. In other words, it's b'chol avavecha, b'chol nafshecha, b'chol meidecha. B'chol meidecha is the highest level of Eidos Hashem, right? The Mishnah says, b'chol mido shu meided lacha v'meided lebe me'ed me'ed. B'chol meidecha is a yid who serves Hashem on a level that's called midas ha'ishtavus. Shivisi Hashem l'negdi summit. The teva and ra is shove. Midas ha'ishtavus means that Hashem gives me something good, and Hashem gives me something bad. I say for both of them a teva a meitev, as opposed to a dev a meitev a dayan emes. The Gemara says Gemila asad lavi, so it's a very high level. A yid who's holy by b'chol meidecha is very close to HaKadosh Baruch. And the madrega b'chol meidecha is the madrega of teirasei nasi. A yid who's holding on the level where he serves Hashem with all of his fiber, that good and bad are the same. Like the Baditchev, the Nigma, the Baditchev Erov, Onem Tza'eka. As dir is as good as dich. Und eb nicht gut, is weiter dich. Und eb dich is good, right? If something good happens to me, it comes from you. If something bad happens to me, it comes from you. And if it comes from you, it's good. There's a Nigma for the Baditchev Erov. We sing the Nigma, but we don't pay attention to the words. Unas gut is doch du, Chalila nit eich du. Unas du is doch gut. Right? This is serious. It's not a game. There's madrega b'chol meidech, and it's the madrega of teirasei nasi. Because teirasei nasi doesn't mean a yid learns Torah all day and all night. Teirasei nasi means a yid learns Torah all day and all night, and malachtacha nasas al yedei achedim. And you learn Torah, and everything that you need is taken care of. In other words, the idea of Teirasei Nasi means you're so engaged with the Eibishter that your teva is a different teva. Parnasa is literally mon min hashamayim, that because one is so tuned into Elokus, the in-tuneness, the hashgacha of Elokus to him is in such a high level that teva and Elokus are one. So if he needs to eat, Elokus provides. That's why the Gemara says that Rabbi Yossi Paltiel also, that the Rebbe brings in the Sikha that nowadays there's no such thing as Teirasei Nasi. Because Teirasei Nasi doesn't mean I learn Torah all night, day and all night. Teirasei Nasi means I learn Torah all day and all night, and the Eibishter himself feeds me. Because my connection to him creates a connection with him and me and such a high madrega. That's the type of Teirasei Nasi. What you have in this Maamar is levels of Teirasei Nasi. And again, I've mentioned this before. I believe that there's a Maamar from the Rebbe, which I believe I heard from the Rebbe, where the Rebbe speaks madregis in Teirasei Nasi. Right? Teirasei Nasi is mechuyev in mitzvahs, and he's part of tefillah. I recall the Rebbe saying in a Maamar that the Pshim Bar Yochai was a madrega of Teirasei Nasi, who is part of mitzvahs as well when he was in the Maida. All he did was learn Torah. Apparently, there's different madregis of Teirasei Nasi. The way it plays out in our Maamar is the following: it's possible for you to madrega of Teirasei Nasi, which means he's holding, serving Hashem and love b'chol meidecha. And b'chol meidecha means b'chol mido shu meided lo, have a meided leiva me'ed me'ed, that whatever the Eibishter dishes out for you, you say a daink, a teva meid, which is an incredibly high level. The teva and ra shovin, that good and evil are exactly the same. This is incredibly connected. I have no other words. And it's an eifin of kol malachtacha asuya, that whatever you need is automatically provided for because of your degree of dveikus and elokus. Says the Rebbe in this Maimah, but there's at least two levels in that. The lower level in that is that it's taka teirasa im nase, taka b'chol meidecha, and it's taka teirasa im nase, and it's taka malachtecha nasa de achedim. Your teva is a teva laki, but there has to be a tzivui. You have to command it, or you have to demand it, you have to ask for it. So the lower madrega of teirasa im nase, Yid is so in tune with Elokus that he learns Torah, the Eibishter feeds him, but at least he needs to ask, he needs to decree, tzivui. There is a higher madrega of teirasa im nase, which the Rebbe connects to the story in Zayah with Abshimon Bar Yochai, that he doesn't have to ask. There's no tzivui. He does Torah. He sits and studies Torah. And he's a madrega b'chol meidacha, b'chol mido, midash, u'meidid lacha, v'meidli b'meid miyed. And he's teirasa yom nasi, and malachte nasa de achedim. He doesn't even have to ask. He does his thing, and it comes in completely memela, totally memela. There's no aspect of decree, of assertion on his part, kvayachal, to get the Eibishter to respond. And this is the second introduction. That the Chassid that Maamar is talking about, and again, I believe that the Rebbe's intent in this Maamar in explaining Chassid is to explain what Chassidus is in the context of the Baal Shem Tov's Chassidus, not just in the Yoshan nation, it's Lashon Kodem B'Drosh Chazal, but the way the word Chassid ideally is meant in Teres Baal Shem Tov, in Derech HaTeira V'Avedi, which the Baal Shem Tov revealed, and Talmid Macharav, of course, including and especially the Alter Rebbe, and Derech Chabad, and us. He's defining Chassid. And we have these two building blocks that join together to contribute to the definition of Chassid. The first is the word bittul. Deirish teva zulasa. You put somebody else before yourself, and that's kalmi shalid, that's your responsibility. And the second is that a Chassid is teirasa yom nase, in a way of malachtecha nasa idei achedim b'derech memela. Derech memela. So the Chassid has a lot of bittul, and the reciprocity, the symptom of that bittul is that the Eibishter's will and his will are automatically the same without a cause and effect. He doesn't even have to ask. He certainly doesn't even have to command. Abshimon Bar Yochai said Torah, and the world needed rain, so it rained. Period. So now let's learn this page Samach Vov. Yeah, we've had a very geschmack of Fabringen, about what's a Chassid. And the madrega of Chassid, you talk about Rashbi, we have them kein shayches nit. But the idea of Deirish Teva Zulasa, the ideas are axiomatic. That's how we were raised. You put yourself aside for another person. In other words, there's some very serious relevance and reality to this, even for Anoshim Kerkeinu, for people like ourselves. Zog der Rebbe v'Yuven ze behegdim, to explain the issue of Chanukah, which we learned, the Kasha and the Teretz last week. We have to preface, Masha Kosov, it says in the Pasuk, Yeducha Havaya Kol Maasecha, that a Yid is the madrega of saying Hida, submission to Havaya. And the Chassid brings it down all the way to the madrega of Koi. That's how this pasuk was translated in the previous Maamar. Again, it's based on the Maamar Pada B'Shalom Tefeshayin Hei Ha'eter. Omavai Admor Mashab Deshmasayin Tere, but Rashab explains Maamar Edibir Amaskal Pada B'Shalom Shem Shechtera. In his Maamar Pada B'Shalom, which he said in the year 1904 to 1940 to 1950, Tefeshayin Hei. Skip the parenthesis. The idea that the Chassid is able to bring down a bracha all the way to the lowest level, which is called Koi. And I'm just going to tell you up front that the word bracha, as it's understood in this Maamar, is the second introduction I gave you. That it happens not just malachtecha nasa idei achedim, but it happens memela. Not just whatever you need automatically is provided for. You don't even have to command. You don't even have to demand. You don't have to decree. You don't even have to counter-decree. It happens by itself. Comes from a very, very, very high level. Let's read it. B'smichas ubehemshech leyiducha havaya kol masecha. The chassid brings the bracha all the way till koi. From the highest of levels, the highest of the high comes down to the lowest of the low. Yiducha havaya. What's the tie yiducha havaya? That you're bringing down a madrega of havaya, which not only you can't understand, you can't even relate to b'derech hafla. You can just submit, just haidah. Ki amshachas bracha. Bringing down in a way of bracha. And again, I told you before that bracha here means that it happens so easy that it happens b'meila. Shaydei chasidecha, to a yid who's called chassid, that's higher than yasha and higher than tzaddik. It's an incredibly high level, and it's safe you can't understand it at all. Only submission. Only a chassid is able to do this. Only a chassid bridges the yeducha havaya with the yevarchu koi. Brings down the level of alakus, which you can only submit to, and it comes down to malchus sheva malchus. To bring down from such a high place, which is called yeducha havaya. Moreover, be'efen de bracha, that it happens in a way of a bracha, automatic, without even a tzivui. Who bekeach chasidecha dafkes, from the power of a chassid. By the way, I just want to contrast that the Rebbe said, and it's going to be on this page a little bit later on, the opposite of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai b'derech mamela is Reb Pinchas ben Yore's gzeira. Ki noi narach pseikli meimach. We have other Tanoim who are also the madrega of terasayim nasi, but by them they have to be at tziva and gzeira. In other words, the Rebbe is contrasting one yid of terasayim nasi with the second yid of terasayim nasi. But bracha means that it happens automatically. That the gilui of terasayim nasi comes down automatically. Who can do this? Only a chassid. What is it about a chassid that qualifies him to bring down yeducha havaya till yevarchu kai? Because a chassid has this bittul that I described in my first introduction. The Rebbe Rashab wants to explain how extraordinary this revelation is. And the fact that only a chassid is able to achieve this. So in order to explain what a chassid is, and because a chassid is a chassid can bring down the highest level, yeducha havaya, to the lowest place, yevarchu kei. And in a way, yabrach and memele, says the Rebbe, magdim ba'amayim, and the Rebbe prefaces in his maimer, achilik ben bracha l'tefillah. The difference in the concept of a bracha and the concept of a tefillah. We had this in the Pada B'Shalom maimer at length, if you remember, on page Benvav. It was a big arichas. Here the Rebbe repeats it b'kitzur. The advantage of a bracha, a blessing, compared to a prayer. And again, I started saying, a blessing means you're above and you're sort of sending it down, which is it's assured. Tefillah means you're below when it's not assured, but tefillah tries to create new channels where they don't exist. It's as follows: the tefillah, prayers from the bottom up. Hainu, this means in other words, Shamispalel, the one doing the davening, ulamata, is beneath the resource that he's davening for, that he's praying for. And he asks it should be given to him from above. When one makes a bracha, the concept of a blessing is that the one giving the blessing is above. In other words, anybody can daven for a fellow Jew. A bracha, you need somebody who has a shaykhis with higher worlds. The one who gives the bracha, brackets, zesh yesh leikeach levorech, he who has the power to give the bracha, who l'mayla me'asheire shemimenu nimshechas habracha, is above the root from which the bracha came, umamshechesam l'mayla l'mat, and he brings it down from heaven to earth. Says the Rebbe v'zehu, and accordingly, since the pshat in the bracha is that you're above the reservoir, the resource from which this goodness has to come, think of it in philosophical terms. You have a spiritual bank account, and you want to bring it from the spiritual bank account to the material world. Like a Yid told me once that he came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe had given him many brachas, and he said to the Rebbe, I want to cash, I will eincash in the brachas, I want to withdraw the brachas that you gave me. The Rebbe turned and looked at him, gave another $1, and said to him, Amen, so makuyim v'rebbe peil. It should be realized in actual fact. So the bracha is to bring what you already possess spiritually down to the physical level, and the one giving the bracha has that ability to bring it. The one giving the bracha is above the spiritual reservoir where the potential blessing is. Therefore, he's in a position to bring it from a higher level to a lower level. And then the Rebbe says the word, when one gives a bracha, he commands. He makes a gzeira. He's in a position to guarantee it, to say it with certitude. Now, I just want to remind you that bracha b'derech tzivui is the madrega of the Pinchas ben Yair. The Pinchas ben Yair was terasi ibnasi. And when he needed to cross a river, he said, Ginoi nahara pseikli meimech, he told the water to split. But he had to say so. The B'shim Yochai is even higher than the Pinchas ben Yair. The B'shim Yochai B'pashtus was his son-in-law. Right, so the ganze Maise, the Girsis, who was the Shver and who was the Edom. But the B'Shem Yochai didn't have to be Geyser, and that's even a higher Madregi in Bracha, as you'll see later on this very page. But in the meantime, the Rebbe doesn't go into those distinctions. He simply says Bracha means somebody who brings something from a higher level to a lower level with a certitude, but a Zicherkeit, but derech tzivui. Kivan sh'amavarech, because the one giving the bracha, l'mayla me'asherish, is above the root, sh'mimenu nimshachas ha'bracha, from which the bracha comes, l'chein b'kechei l'tzavetz, which is why you can say it with a certainty. They say in stories that people used to come to the Satmar Rebbe, Satmar Rov, and asking for brachas for children, and he would give brachas. And in those kehilis, there's a chutzpah, mahane, klapi, shmaya. So the Chassidim would sometimes say to the Rebbe, we don't want a bracha, we want to have toch, we want a promise. So there's a story that goes around that the Satmar Rov said, I can't give you a promise, I'll give you a bracha. If you want a promise of Eastern Parkway, Dreizech Epes Einer, a younger man, he can't gain se'em. On Eastern Parkway, there's a young man that wanders, you can go to him. And I saw an interview, I think I saw this interview myself, that a person asked the Rebbe in a newspaper interview how he can give people promises for children, a zicherkeit for children. And the Rebbe's answer was, Azeh is b'hunz in mishpacha. It's a family thing. That's what it is in our family, we can be sure. Such a bracha, that you're in such a high ma'amad matzav that you literally have the child, and if you can give it with a certitude. There's a story, a gan tzarichas asipa, I don't have time to tell it, but the nekuda is that a yid came to the Rebbe for a bracha for children. It's a whole long, complicated story. And the Rebbe looks at him and says, who's he going to play with? Who's he going to play with? Who's he going to play with? The guy had no children. And the Rebbe asked him who he's going to play with. So he doesn't, he's incredulous, he didn't know what to say. So the Rebbe asks him again, who is the child going to play with? So he doesn't. So finally the Rebbe says, Zog Amen, say Amen. And he had twins, so that they had playmates. Billa ployim, hafla v'fela, a bracha. But the mevarech is above the thing of which is giving the bracha, so it's guaranteed. And like I said to you before, again I'm repeating. The lower madrege, at least you have to say it, at tzivoy, like the ma'aser with the Pinchas ben Yair. And the higher madrege, that it's b'meila, you say tate, and it happens by itself, like the story of Rav Shimon bar Yochai. So that's the ma'ila of bracha, that you're above the resource in which the bracha comes, and you can guarantee it. V'amayla, the tefillah, middle of the page, samach zayin, the first word on the line is the tefillah. The advantage of tefillah kavi bracha, the advantage of tefillah is as follows, of davening, which is higher than bracha, is the following. The Einyan bracha, one gives a bracha, it's lahamshech, it brings down with a certitude, but mashakfa nimtza, that it already exists, b'hamokin, in the spiritual bank account. V'lei devechadash, you're not creating anything new, you're simply actualizing a possibility. V'inyan hatfilahu, and prayer is, ba'kasha me'akadosh baruch hu, it's a request from the Eibishter. Shegam be'imlei yesh nechas v'sholem hashpah gam b'amok. When this bounty, when this blessing, when this offering doesn't even exist in one spiritual source. V'le'ed moreover ala shenigzer alav, that it was a decreed on high, the opposite of bracha. She'echelech chas v'sholem b'shabi il God forbid u'kiyitzah b'zeh. So there's a situation where not only is a person not entitled to this blessing, but it's been determined that it should get the opposite of this blessing. So bracha is not going to help because it's not in the spiritual reservoir. At the same time, tumshech le'ashpah chadasha, through tefillah, through yehi ratzon, you create a new ashpah, a new resource of positive good, me'erein safe, shalamayla me'ishtalshalos, that you're healed. The zeh she'emeh v'kama tefillah, which is why it's very common in prayer to say the words yehi ratzon, and the meaning of the word yehi ratzon is literally this: a will should be created. Hashem right now doesn't will this. Or Hashem may have decreed to will the opposite. And Yehi Ratzon, you're creating a new will. The Pirish, Yehi Ratzon Hu, Yehi Ratzon Chadash, a new will in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the mile of Tefillah. So bracha is certain, and it's b'derech tzivui. And tefillah is uncertain, but it creates a ratzon chodesh. So now, having explained the advantage of bracha over tefillah, and having explained the advantage of tefillah over bracha, the Rebbe says, this fellow who's a chassid, that yeducha avaya yevarchu koi, is bringing down from the level of avaya, which is hedah, all the way to yevarchu koi, is combining the advantage of tefillah, creating something new, and the advantage of bracha, creating something certain. Says the Rebbe, v'zehu geidel ili habracha da chassidech. And this is the pshat that a chassid, as this pasuk is describing what a chassid is, has a special kind of a bracha. Sham shechasahi mimakam shebei ha'idah, that is bringing it down from a level of yeducha havaya, submission. And Heidah is certainly higher than Makir HaBracha. Heidah means you're relating to a level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that you can't understand at all, you can't really just submit. And that's much, much higher than the Makir of Brachas. And the Rebbe therefore says, the Bebracha Zu, this Bracha, this Yevarach Hu Koi, since it's coming from Lav Yeducha Havaya, Shtei HaMailas, has both strengths. Sham Shachim Yedin Seif Shalom Maila Me'ishtalshalos. On the one hand, you're bringing down godless above Ishtalshalos. Hayno Shaydei Bracha Zu Nasa Ratzon Chodesh, it creates a new will. Hamayla de Tefillah. V'af apikein at the same time, you lay Tefillah Bakosha LeBruch. It's certain to be brought down. And again, the Rebbe uses the word B'derech Tzivui, that the tzaddik decrees and it happens for sure. Ukadisa be Yerushalmi, like it says in Yerushalmi. And of course, in the Gemara it says, the Gemara Bala says, tzaddik gezer v'kadosh baruch hu makayim. Right? The tzaddik decrees and Hashem does what tzaddik wants. In the Yerushalmi it says, HaKadosh baruch hu gezer v'tzaddik b'vatal, which is a higher Einyan. And that's why the Rebbe keeps referring to the Yerushalmi. V'tig zereimer v'yokum loch. That there's a gzeira and you do something different. That afilu hu HaKadosh baruch hu amar hachin. The Eibusha says one way. V'at amar hachin. And you say a different way. Didach kaima, didi lei kaima. Your hachin, your wish is actualized and his wish is not actualized. This means that gam la'acharei shenigza, the Eibusha decreed, shaloi tia hashpa, hu amar hachin, that you're not going to have this bracha for whatever reason. Nimshechas hashpa, nevertheless, because of the koyach of a tzaddik, the hashpa is brought down, because it's hamshachas ratzon chodesh, hamayla de tefillah. You're creating a will which is new. Hashem's will was for the gzeira to be. Your will is the tefillah, whether the Eibush should create a will that the gzeira shouldn't be, and it's not. And moreover, ve'ifin hamshacha, the way it's brought down is le'adei habakosha. Not that you have to plead and beg. El ayadei at amar hachin. All you do is you say what you want. A yid is mitzaveh, and that's enough. And the Rebbe says, nimshechas hashpa b'derech mamela. Automatically. You see, so here, he doesn't use the word tzivui. He uses the word b'derech mamela. This is what I was telling you the whole time. That even though twice before, the Rebbe described the bracha as tzivui, like the story of the Pinchas ben Yoyer, at the end of the page, the Rebbe goes on to say that and again, this is now my words, but this is Pshat and Maamar, that in Teirasa Yom Nasi, where Malachtacha Nas Saidei Acherim, because in other words, the Ashgach of this person from the Eibush that is so great, that Teva gives him whatever he needs, because Teva and Alakus is one. On the lower level of Teirasa Yom Nasi, there's a Tzivui, like a Pinchas ben Yoyer. On the higher level of Teirasa Yom Nasi, it's B'derech Melech, like a Shim B'Yechai. The story in the Zeya, which we had in the last Maamar, Sherashbi him Shechidus Geshama de Amiras Teira. Rabbi Shimon Yochai made rain by simply saying Teira. Okay, Dagam, even though in order to make it rain. It was a drought, there was no rain. Why was there no rain? Apiteva, there's supposed to be rain. Because the Eibusha decreed, the rain should be discontinued, and nevertheless it happened. He created a new will. Yehiratz, the Eibusha said no, and Rabbi Shimon Yochai said yes, and it was. But how did he say yes? Not by Gzeira, by Teira. Mikomokim, in addition to his koyach, to bring rain, Sad HaKadosh Baruch Hu Gezer v'tzaddik mavatla, creates a new ratz that should be rain, it's at the Amiras Teira. All he did was say Teira de Rashbi, this is the highest madrega of Teirasa Yom Nasi, that you're so one with the lakus, the b'chol ma'idachaz, that's such a high madrega, where your will is the Eibishter's will, and the Eibishter's will is your will. So when he's saying Teira on behalf of rain, it rains automatically. And this time, Yeducha v'geim v'chasidecha yevachu v'chasidecha dafke. Ki amshacha be'efen de barach, to bring down in a way which is certain. And moreover, a bracha which is memela, yivarchucha. From this very high level called Heidah, which is even higher than, which is at least as high as Tefillah, it's Bekei Chasidecha, Davka have Davka from a Chassid. And this is today's Shir. What I wanted to do tonight, and I think I did it to some extent, is translate the word Chassid as it is in this Maamar, and to underscore the different levels, and the highest Madrega of Chassid is represented by Shem Ba'Yechai. Now, in the next class, we're going to be discussing Tzaddik, Yasher, and Chassid. And in the class after that, we're going to connect it to Birurim and to Chassidus. So the Rebbe Shtan's help.